Ema Roloff. It's very good to sit down with you and to have you on my show for a change.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's an interesting way, as part of Insurance Careers Month, to sit down with you and start by saying, I'm actually not that interested in your insurance career story. I am interested in it. I care about it. And I know you actually have a really interesting one, but that's not why we're here. The reason why I wanted to sit down with you, especially in Insurance Careers Month, is actually something I'm going to get the luck and the joy of getting to watch you talk about live next month at PLRB's Claims Conference, where you're doing one of our Future of Insurance talks, and it's all about whether and how and if AI is coming for our jobs. I mean, I think as we talk about careers in this industry, we'd be wrong not to talk about what's going on with AI and what does that mean for all of us. And I know you've been looking at this, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah. So the title of the talk, just to give everybody a nice teaser for my viewpoint on this idea, is that AI is not going to steal your job, but it is going to change it. And for anybody that follows me, it's no mystery that I am a big people proponent in the world of digital transformation. And that certainly is a factor in why I hold that belief that AI is not going to steal our jobs, but specifically within the insurance industry, and even more specifically on the claims side, there is a number of kind of defining factors that I think make it a pretty clear-cut case that AI isn't going to take all of our jobs. The most obvious being we're on the brink of a pretty substantial talent shortage. And
Hmm.
I'm certainly not the one to break that news to anybody. But when we start looking at some of the statistics that are coming out from places like the Institute, when we're looking at how many people are leaving the field and also how many people are coming in, we're not doing a lot to solve that shortage.
Yeah.
And being able to absorb that completely with technology alone, at least where we're at right now with our current IT infrastructures and technical talent that we have within the industry, we can't absorb that many careers all in one foul swoop, even with technology advancing really drastically. One of the stats that I found while I was doing research for the presentation is that 8 in 10 millennials don't have an idea of what types of careers are available to them within the insurance industry.
Oh, wow.
So beyond the 500,000 people that are set to retire in the next 5 or 15 years, that spigot of people coming into the industry is pretty slow in comparison to what gaps we need to fill.
Yeah.
So like just that alone, people are going to be incredibly important for us, even as we're automating processes. Um, when we look at the insurance industry as a whole, and again, these are not like groundbreaking insights that I'm kind of putting out there, but complexity is really high within the insurance industry. And that complexity might also be part of the reason that we see so many people kind of avoiding the industry,
Hmm.
because they hear it's complex and it's, kind of old school. And so we have this room to use technology to improve our processes and make insurance more simple. But again, that can't happen overnight. And as we continue to do things like add more products to our portfolios or change our distribution of how we get our products out. So when, all the trends that you and I have talked about, like embedded insurance, all of these things make our ecosystem that much more complex
Yeah.
and provide that many more opportunities for people to come into the industry and continue to build the talent that's in this industry. But that again, just continues to widen that gap for us. But I think the last component of this, kind of tied to that idea, is that even if we're able to address the complexity and simplify our industry, the customer experience and customer expectations across the board are rising in every single industry. So this is not unique to insurance, but specifically in our scenario and specifically for claims, like I was saying, if we niche down to those claims adjusters, when you look at, again, the statistics, 47% of people still want to talk to someone when something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And they want to pick up the phone and they want someone to be on the other end. And when you look at how, again, those rising stakes, 46% of people say that they want or that their customer experience is their number one factor for choosing a carrier.
Mm,
And then diving even further into that, only 29% of people say that they're pleased with their current customer experience with their carrier.
that's not
And
great.
so those stakes are so high.
Yeah.
And if you have an opportunity to have good people helping solve those problems for your customer, you automatically give yourself an advantage in the competitive landscape as a carrier. And so while we're all driving towards these digital experiences, those are incredibly important. Customers are still looking for options, and those options require people.
We get more complexity. We don't have enough people coming in to fill those jobs, and they don't even know what those jobs are. And to be fair, some of them may not even have been figured out by the people creating the job. Like we don't even know what the jobs will look like yet. So how could we expect the next generation talent to know that they want to do them? And there's all of these customer based reasons why they still want a person. So
Mhm.
it's not to say there's never the technology, but there's all these reasons why we shouldn't just get tunnel vision and hear about the technology that's coming, the AI that's coming, and think we're all doomed because there's a more complex picture than that. Is that sort of the gist of it?
Yeah, I think so. And the other side is when we look at the adoption of technology outside of insurance, but there's a quote, I think it's from Bill Gates, that talks about we overestimate what can be accomplished in a year and underestimate what can be accomplished in 5 years.
Yeah.
And so when we are seeing these changes and there's like big news surrounding AI, like Chat GPT, or all of the use cases of AR and other AI components coming into what we do in our personal lives, we assume these things are happening overnight.
Yeah.
It takes so long for adoption and training of these tools, but then bringing them into a corporate environment beyond just you and I adopting them in our personal lives, there's a pretty large uptake in terms of how long that takes. And so again, we're going to see changes, and everyone can come join us down in Florida to learn about what I think those changes are going to be and what skills you need to be successful in the new working environment. But your job is not going to go away. It's just going to look different than it looks today.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. And as you're talking about those time horizons, I keep thinking about autonomous cars, which is another form of AI coming in and not just taking taxi driver jobs or truck driver jobs away, but much more broad impact in that. The first like strong date I can remember is Carlos Ghosn, who was the CEO of Nissan at the time. He said 2018. We're 5 years past that date. It's not happening. We're certainly not going to get it in 2018 because they'd need to have autonomous cars and a time machine to deliver that.
Well, and I remember when I was little, like people, I mean, obviously there's like the Jetsons and that kind of stuff, but I remember being told like you might not need to learn how to drive a car. Well,
Yeah,
that is past.
yeah,
And the idea that my kids might not need to drive a car is still looking even
it's
pretty
pretty tough.
unrealistic
Yeah,
in that scenario based off of how we've seen this adoption and some of the challenges that you don't realize lay ahead of you when you start interacting with these tools and these technologies until you're in it and living it and you've then run up against that barrier. And
yeah,
so again, when we get into the space of insurance with regulation and bias and all of the ethical questions that come along with it, I think the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to be having a lot of the conversation of just because we can doesn't mean we should,
yeah.
or where do we draw that line and how do we make sure that we're doing it ethically? And those things are going to take a really long time for our industry and society in general to start to unpack.
Well, there's a second piece of your talk title that is worth people thinking about, and is a good reason to come on the 21st of March at 1:30 to hear your talk and some others that are going on with interesting ideas about how things are changing. But it was that it will change our jobs. And I
Mhm.
think that's the point is like, this isn't just your job's going away or it isn't. It's the long term. It's the like, okay, well, then what do I do about it? Because actually, we still have agency. We're still empowered. We may need to change. May need to learn some things or look into some things, but we have the space if we open up to that possibility instead of just having what's an understandable but fear based response to the like swarms of information about all the new stuff that's coming for us. And like, why don't we engage with it differently and see how we can all grow?
Exactly. You can't hide under a rock. You need to know it's coming. And there's some things that we'll go over during that talk on the 21st that you can do to kind of future proof your career.
Awesome. Emma, thank you so much for sitting down and sharing a little bit about your thoughts on this. And it is really important and timely stuff. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.